Hi all, I'm delighted to have two amazing guests with me today. I'll let them do their own introductions.
I'm WIM Natasha Regan.
And I'm GM Matthew Sadler.
And we're very excited to be here with the great Kingscrusher, who
Kingscrusher.
Kingscrusher, who is very well known for all his videos on Leela Zero. And what we want to do in our video today is look at the comparisons between AlphaZero and Leela Zero and look at their styles. We've got a couple of really beautiful games for you. One is AlphaZero against Stockfish, and it's in a Queen's Indian opening. And the other one is Leela Zero against Stockfish from the recent TSEC match, and it's a Slav Gambit. And in both of these games, we see AlphaZero and Leela Zero advancing their rook's pawns. And so we're going to look at the games now.
Okay, fantastic. Let's have a go. So this is a very interesting game. It was actually one that we were going to put in our book, Game Changer, but didn't quite make the final cut, which sort of shows kind of how great all these games were actually, because this is a very nice game indeed. So this was just played from the start position. So AlphaZero and Stockfish were making it up as they went along. And yeah, I mean, this is one of AlphaZero's favourite openings. So it scored very, very well with this and found some quite beautiful ideas. So the G3 Queen's Indian. It's supposed to be very quiet, but there are quite a few exciting lines as well.
Trifon, does Leela ever play this opening?
Yes, I think Leela is good in the more strategic openings in particular. Doesn't do so well when it's having to play the King's Game accepted though. But on the kind of more positional openings, that our friend Paul Georgiou, he would like these,
yes.
wouldn't he?
He would definitely
like these. Leela does very well, yeah.
Nice. So this is quite standard, actually. I mean, actually quite impressive when you think that these machines are sort of finding this out by themselves, and this bishop b4 check, bishop b7 maneuver to misplace the bishop on d2 is a refinement that came quite late to the human game, but machines are doing it quite easily. This is always quite interesting. I mean, AlphaZero likes fixing the centre, because if you fix the centre, then you can play more easily on the wings, and that's really where I think both AlphaZero and Leela Zero excel actually in playing all over the board on both wings at the same time. So this is actually a well-known theoretical position. It's quite topical, and well, I do book reviews as well, actually, and there's a book that came out recently on this variation, and the author does a huge job. I think he covers about 7 moves in this position: Queen C2, Rook C1, Bishop F4, everything. The one move he doesn't cover is the one that AlphaZero played, funnily enough. And actually, it's only been played. It's never been played over the board, so from that point of view, it's a novelty. But it's actually been played once in a correspondence game. And if I tell you it's a rook's pawn, have a guess. But which one? Which one?
I would normally guess H4, but I know this game's about playing your queen's rook pawn, so I'm going to guess A4.
Indeed, A4. And it's a very interesting move. I mean, those sort of moves, they sort of put the question to black, are you going to react to a future A5, or are you just going to let it happen? And if you react, then, that might affect the things that you can do later. For example, in the correspondence game, black played A5, which, blocks the advance, but it does mean that if black later plays a move like C5, let's have a look whether I can use your software, Trifon, and can I do an arrow here? Click and click. Oh, very good. If black later plays C5, then, we have a weak square on B5. So actually, by playing this move, by including the moves A4 and A5 in the position, B5 has got weaker. So, what Stockfish did in this particular game was to play the move C6, which is quite looks a little bit strange, but it defends the pawn on D5 and means that black is now ready to take on E5 and get rid of that advanced knight. Well, quite happy that that Stockfish did this, because then we actually see the whole point of AlphaZero's concept, which is really nice. So I really do like it. So that's a5, knight takes c5, d takes c5, knight d7, and then anyone want to guess the next move?
Is it a forcing move?
It's
A6?
it's what you think. It's a6. Actually, this is a move that well, certainly the hardware I'm running on, none of my other engines really like it very much. But it's a gorgeous idea. The idea is to we're forcing black to undevelop his bishop, of course. That pawn is going to be lost in the meantime, but it's going to take a number of moves to take that pawn. And in the meantime, there's going to be some serious action on the king side.
It doesn't look yet like there's an attack building up on the king side. It looks quite quiet there, but you can see the pieces are kind of lining up that way.
Yeah, it's quite weird. I mean,
it does seem to be sort of rule breaking the way White's played this, because if White's playing f4, we're told not to use our f pawn, but with great caution because the diagonals are kind of sometimes very dangerous. And also, of course, the pawn, to be taken, it's going to be swallowed up. It's something very scary. And also the c5 square with this capture away, the c5 is for black looks pretty dangerous, for black to use.
Yeah, I mean it's quite it's quite a risky strategy, but somehow it works really well. I mean, I think the first thing is that with bishop c8, black is undeveloped, and actually a move like knight to c5 could be met by b4. And then b5, breaking open the centre. Yeah. So there's I mean, it's always the same with these concepts of AlphaZero and Leela as well. I mean, there's some. You see the general strategy, but there's also some little tactics in there that just make it all possible.
Something about this position in some of our AlphaZero games, AlphaZero's got a really fixed closed centre. In this one, it looks to me like black could move the pawns at some point, but I suppose black can't really because that diagonal's so weak, the g2 up to a8, and so in a way the centre doesn't need to be blocked so much as just it can't move.
It's sort of clamped a little bit, isn't it? Just because black's undeveloped. So I mean, Stockfish plays knight b8, and then we get this king h1. I think this is really typical of AlphaZero. It's always putting its king to safety before it starts attacking. And Kasparov always did stuff like that in his Najdorf Sicilians. He always played at the crucial moment where you thought he's going to try and crash through. He played some rook e8 and bishop f8 in order to consolidate.
Oh, there's an art of war principle, putting yourself beyond defeat before going on to the attack.
Ooh, I think that's good.
I think Magnus Carlsen also, he's known for these king moves for safety there before going on to the attack.
Yeah. Really, I mean, it avoids any random checks, and after knight takes a6, f5.
AlphaZero is really going for it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, the weird thing about this position is that AlphaZero has given up this pawn on a6, but actually, black, by taking this pawn on a6, has actually developed that rook on a1 because it's actually attacking the knight on a6, and that means that before black can think about moving, maybe developing his light square bishop to d7 or something like that, then he'll have to move his knight as well. So black's got a lot of dependencies basically to get himself going. But of course, when you're talking about defending these positions, there's nothing better than Stockfish, and plays rook e8, and this is very typical defence actually. E4, d4, keeping the centre closed, knight e2, and then this move bishop b4, after this move, actually, AlphaZero has a huge boom. So it's. I mean, before it was setting the position around a 57% expected score, so that's a little bit better than a draw. After this, it was at 78% or something.
I should give it to the T-set. They love the term boom. There's
lots of beautiful. Yeah, of course,
acceleration.
Of course, yeah. We even we even used it in the book as well. I couldn't resist the boom. Basically, it's. I mean, what AlphaZero actually wanted was was this move knight c5 to try and bring the knight a little closer to the king side. But this move bishop b4, I mean, it's a really typical Stockfish thing. I mean, what Stockfish is trying to do is survive with minimal forces on the king side, but untouched kingside pawn structure. So it's very you sort of think, well, how are you ever going to get at it? And at the same time, it's trying to exchange off White's attacking pieces with a move bishop b4. It's trying to make use of that knight on a6, that offside knight on a6, and it's also attacking the pawn on e5, which is White's biggest weakness. So it's a great it's a good defensive concept. The only thing is that AlphaZero's prepared this amazing set of sacrifices that really crosses that plan, and it plays e6. F takes e6, has to be taken, and then f6, double pawn sacrifice, g takes f6, and knight f4.
I love this knight maneuver. In fact, someone did an article against Sicilian, this knight going to h5 in a closed Sicilian. It's sometimes a very nice attacking maneuver.
It's the nice thing about this thing is that if you just compare it to this position, here Stockfish was defending its king side with minimal pieces, but its king side was untouched, so you thought it's very hard to get at the king side. And actually what AlphaZero's done is just said, well, okay, that's your defensive concept. Well, try that defensive concept with minimal pieces, only with a wrecked king side. I'll just give you 2 pawns for it, no problem, but just see how you cope with that one. And actually, this is very, very, very unpleasant. Actually, and I've spent a lot of time in total on this position, and also asked AlphaZero for what it thought about the position. And it's really very, very difficult. The most obvious move, I suppose, would be to play bishop takes d2. After all, that's why you put the bishop on b4. Get rid of this piece, tuck the king away. But suddenly, it's not obvious at the start, but you suddenly realise that I've got this rook on a8. Oh, come on, I dare to do it. A rook on a8, a knight on a6, and a bishop on c8, and they're all doing nothing. And if you think about how could Black connect its rooks quickly, we would have to play the bishop to b7, but that's putting the bishop away from the king side, and it has to do that because the knight on a6 has to be defended. So, long term, Black's going to be playing with very few pieces on the king side.
And it only takes White 2 or 3 moves to make this attack. Really.
Look at how quickly it's coming. Knight f6. Queen g7, probably the best move. Queen h4, and I was analysing this, and I didn't actually. I got quite far, but I didn't actually see the key idea, unfortunately. So I got this far with doubling up the rooks, but I thought that the Black was vaguely holding, but.
So people should stop the video and
see if
they can think of the key idea.
See if they can think of the great idea here. It's the point is you don't realise it, but having pieces on the queen's side not helping with a defence, bishop b7, rook a8, it really, really matters. It's just that you've got to find the key, and actually it's very simple. Exchange off some defenders. And then it's this move, Queen h5, this little creeping move.
Amazing.
That's really, really nasty. Rook f7 is coming in, and the Queen's also looking at e5 check as well.
This is a great example. I've been emphasising, I don't know if this is wrong actually, to some of I've been doing a bit of coaching, I've been saying doubling rooks is almost like a tactic. When you double pieces on a coordination square, it's almost like a tactic. It's like as though you've pinned the piece. When you've put multiple pieces on a square, it's a tactic in its own right. That rook f7 just seems very difficult to defend now with that bishop.
You can't really. You could stop. How could you stop it? King g8 or something. But
we're going to check. We're going to check you, and there's even moves like bishop h3 coming in as well. So it's really very, very dangerous. It's for example, if you go something like move like queen g7. Could we do Queen g7?
Cool.
Queen g7. Oh, I record. That's right. Queen g7. Then, Rook f7 is coming in, and if Queen g6 and Queen e5 check is and followed by Rook takes b7.
Yeah,
it's really, really nasty. A really big crush.
We have seen it quite a lot, haven't we? In these AlphaZero games about swapping off and then just leaving yourself with.
Yeah, I don't know whether you remember that. Probably do that great game where AlphaZero went Queen h1.
That's amazing science fiction.
But it was something very, very similar to this. That all of Black's defensive pieces get exchanged. It's got those 2 pieces in the corner, just a bishop and a rook, and then White's actually attacking seems to have more pieces, even though in that game White was actually a piece down. Here actually just look at my notes. Actually, Rook f4 would be a very strong answer to king g8 with rook g4 check coming in. So so actually this exchanging off the bishops there was not a good idea. You just simply tee up against the king's side. So Stockfish played, actually was a little bit mysterious, played e5, knight h5, and then in the game it suddenly decided to cut its losses and play this move bishop e7. But this allowed a rather nice tactic, and again, so thematic that...
we should ask them if they can
Oh,
play.
yes, find the tactic.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
5 seconds,
Wide
find
play.
the tactic. It's
Wide
very
play.
thematic. It's all to do with the fact that you've advanced that a-pawn all those moves ago. And are we ready for it? We're ready for it. We go rook takes a6, which actually just picks up a piece. Because if bishop a6...
Queen g4.
Queen g4 check. There's quite a few ways of doing it, but this is the most elegant. Bishop h3. Threatening queen e6 or queen g7. Absolutely gorgeous little way of winning. So, I mean, in the game, after rook a6, Stockfish went king h8, and after rook a1, it was... Well, it had a few pawns for the piece, but it was a pretty rubbish position, really, and it just it lost very easily. It didn't have much of a chance. The key thing was, though, you sort of think, well, bishop e7 was a bit odd. Wasn't there a better way of defending? How about this move, rook f8? And so I was looking at bishop h6, bishop e7, and the first thing that you look at here is again this move rook takes a6. I mean, after all, doesn't that look great? And there's we're gonna give you another tactical puzzle soon. So because there is one absolutely beautiful line that it just flashed into my head. I was so happy about it, and that's if king f7. We have this move bishop h3, and now bishop takes f1. If you grab the whole house, how do you finish this off? It's quite difficult, this one, actually.
So queen... what about queen e6 again?
Queen e6 will go king g6. And escape. It's kind of it's a really... Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so good. It's right, I'm going to...
Yes, I was super amazed by this.
It's incredible, isn't it? Queen g7, king e8...
Yeah, this is this 5 seconds.
5 seconds for this one.
500 points if you can get this. This is the most incredible move I've seen, possibly for a long time. 5 seconds. White play. Okay.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's queen g6 check. I've never seen this tactic before. H takes g6, knight g7 check, king f7.
Nice.
And bishop e6 mate.
Amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Amazing.
It's just, I mean, and then, when people ask, why do you enjoy analysing these games so much? You just think, wow, if you see variations like this. Unfortunately, of course, it's not. This isn't actually the best move because if Black plays queen d6, then it looks like the very best that White's got here is a draw, in actual fact. So the main line was this move, knight g7, and then bishop c8 to cover all these light squares. Yeah. Otherwise, it's all going to work again. But we go queen here, king g8. Knight e8. Ooh. It's amazing. You think how can Black possibly survive this? But queen d8, bishop f8, and king takes f8, and this actually just seems to end in a draw. The best I could find was queen h7, bishop takes h3, and then we just do a little draw by repetition like this. It's great with this knight on the 8. It's really really quite lovely. But anyway, that was the you could say that was the human line. So that's the line that I found. There are actually 2 better lines, and I thought it was quite striking actually. When I got my my engines to analyze for 6 hours or maybe 12 hours, they just well, I mean, I suppose I'm never quite sure what it means because obviously my hardware is not 40 cores or anything. It's 6 cores. But when I get them to analyze for a long time, oops, I'm terribly sorry. They came up with this move, which was g3 to g4. which is a great little move actually. And Rook F7. I'd seen this idea. I'd found it in an earlier variation, and it's a very typical idea. Just throwing forward that G pawn and opening up the king side. And there's some great lines. I mean, Queen F3 check, but they're extremely hard to visualize. So, for example, if you go King E6. Where you sort of think, well, actually, I don't know. I mean, if I give a check on G7, my king's just running to the side. But there's an absolutely gorgeous move, which I hadn't spotted, which is this move Bishop G7. And the idea is that, well, you're threatening Queen F5 check, and if King D6, we're just going to take on E5. King takes E5 and Queen G3, which is extremely unpleasant. You're caught in all sorts of crossfires here after Rook F1.
Wow.
Bishop H3 check is coming in, Knight G7, all this stuff.
Wow.
So, so that's just one variation. There's many more. What I was intrigued about actually was that the only line that AlphaZero considered in this position, the one that it was spending all of its time on, was this move: Bishop takes F8, Queen F8. And then Rook A2.
That's beautiful.
Which,
I love that.
Yeah, I just thought it was very thematic somehow. Yeah, you've moved this A pawn up, and you've activated your rook, and now you're going to use that in order to line up on the position. And this is very strong too. But it's a very strategical one because, to be honest, all those tactics in that line with G4, G5. I mean, I was amazed you're not losing. You're just not just losing pieces. I mean, I was losing pieces constantly when I was analysing it. Whereas this is actually, it's not simple, but it's you're getting all your pieces into work. This is a very nice move, just opening up the king side still further. If Queen G5, I think Bishop F3 was the big move, and you're going to bring the rook over to the G file, and here it comes into the E file. And this was the long variation that AlphaZero had. I mean, here AlphaZero want to play Rook F8 check, which is pretty strong too. Queen C1 also looks very strong to me, to be honest. This move, aiming for G5, and also looking at stuff like Rook takes E6. I mean, that also looks quite strong. But AlphaZero's line was Rook F8, Queen F8, Rook takes F8, King takes, check there, and Queen G3. When, I mean, it's not winning, but it's going to be very unpleasant for black to hold this. He's got quite a few pieces,
so
but
rook and
a bishop and some pawns. But E5 is rather sensitive, and if you defend it with Bishop D6, then we can think about playing stuff like Queen takes G5. It's very unpleasant for black. I mean, of course, if you want anyone to try and defend it, you'd like to have the guy playing the black pieces. But I mean, it's very, very dangerous. So I mean, that was the actually there were two ways of meeting this move Rook F8. And I imagine that probably that Stockfish saw one of them, which is why I decided to bail out with this move Bishop E7. But of course, after Rook takes A6, King H8, Rook A1, Rook G8, and now I think these two moves were quite important: H3 and then G4, just clamping down. And well, I mean, basically, Stockfish went backwards quite slowly and painfully. Yeah. But the gorgeous thing about it was this initial concept of pushing the A pawn up to A6, and I was really struck when I saw a game of Leela's in the TCC Championships, game 81. So yeah, it might be nice to bring that one up and have a look at it.
Yeah.
We why would we expect AlphaZero and Leela Zero to play in a similar style? I guess part of that is how it's built. So it's using this neural net technology, and okay, you might think because it's built a certain way, would that necessarily, it makes it strong, but would it necessarily play in the same style as AlphaZero? And we've seen so many different games where Leela Zero's and AlphaZero's style look very, very similar.
Yeah, I mean they can do a lot of they can do a lot of nice things just very, very well. Stuff like assessing pawn sacrifices, long-term compensation, stuff like opposite coloured bishops.
Yeah, because it was really funny we were writing the book, and actually when we started writing the book, Leela wasn't all that strong.
Yeah.
And then we wrote the book, sent a draft off, and at that time we're following online about Leela playing its matches.
And your videos as well.
And Trifon's videos. Yeah, definitely we were following.
Yeah.
And I think you came up with the terminology about a thorn pawn.
Yeah.
But no, we had already written chapters that we hadn't thought of the words thorn pawn. We'd already written this chapter about the H pawn pushing up the board, and we were like, thorn pawn. And we said, that's a nice name. But it was amazing that some of the same things were being talked about by yourself and others. On the chat, and we'd already written all this about AlphaZeros.
And have you noticed it's more strategic openings? It does much better. I think the alpha beta classical approach is great for tactical positions, whereas it's all about the piece play. But when it's the pawns, Leela can do sadistic things like tie up the opponent's pieces and then attack, and create these dependencies, as you say. And it's very interesting you talk about dependencies, because also in reverse, Leela is. I've seen one of your videos earlier about. It moves its king over there, so it sort of creates an independence for its own attacking plans as well.
Yeah,
so it creates dependencies on the opponent, but creates independencies for itself, that it's free to do what it wants.
Yeah.
It's kind of the sadist.
So it's got kind of much more choice about what it plays. It's somehow restricted what the opponent can do, and then it can...
But without the pawns, I think we would be a much more tactical game, and maybe the alphabet would dominate totally. We wouldn't see this, but especially in the French defence, against the French defence, Leela is absolutely amazing.
Yes. So let's have a look, and let's bring up this Leela Zero game, because it was a really good one.
Okay, well, back in a moment.